Hello and welcome. I'm Grant Cooper from Gladstone Ports Corporation's Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race commentary team with another edition of Before the Start. Interviews with a wide range of people, including organisers right through to the yachtsmen themselves, everyone that makes this great race tick. Joining me again in commentary this year is accomplished yachtsman and apparently the knowledgeable one from Barkarati, the sailing podcast, downloadable from all good podcast platforms. Welcome back, Jordan Spencer.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here as part of the Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race for 2022. It was a very interesting year last year, and I'm hoping that this year will be a lot more exciting.
Great, thanks, mate. Well, this year the Sydney to Hobart gained extra recognition with the first time the two-handed division was recognised in the Hobart race. Now, I don't mean to big note the Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race, but the two-handed division has been running here in this race for quite some time. But one of the early entrants for the division in the race this year is Bryan Bailie. And Bryan is our very special guest today. Welcome, Bryan.
G'day, Grant. G'day, Jordan. Thank you for the opportunity.
Not a problem at all. Well, I mean, it's a pretty good segue into what we were just mentioning there in the introduction, the two-handed division. You're an entrant in this race this year with your boat, Ocean Essence. Look, I don't know if it's just my age at the moment, but I'm starting to get a little bit more on the luxurious side of things. And here you are taking crew off the boat and making yourself do all the work. What the heck? What's all this about?
Oh, Grant, the double-handed has tweaked the interest. I'm a racing skipper by heart. I certainly decided to give racing a break 9 years ago and get into cruising with my lovely wife, Suzanne. And I've enjoyed that for 9 odd years. And with the double-handed, it's sort of interest growing and watching what occurred at the Sydney Hobart. I thought to myself, well, let's do something different this sailing season and maybe participate in a couple of double-handeds and let's see how it goes.
Bryan, you've got a pretty spectacular boat to do it on. Grant says you've given up the luxuries, but let's be honest, you're carting around quite a bit of luxury with the vessel you're on. You've got the Dufour 512 Grand Large with the taller racing rig. So by my research, you've got a barbecue in the cockpit, you've got a fridge in the cockpit, you've got a sink in the cockpit. Is this just an excuse to go and have a pleasant cruise?
No, not at all. Look, I'm a racing skipper by heart. I certainly enjoy the competition and I've watched it from the sidelines. And having sailed Ocean Essence for the past 9 years with Suzanne, we've certainly realised that she's, a good performance cruiser. And I get a lot of enjoyment sailing her whilst cruising. And as my wife would say, I always try and sail her as fast as I can and put her away wet. So I thought I would give that a crack doing a bit of double-handed this year, noting that whilst the luxuries are there, and I'm sure there'll be a few bevies in the cockpit fridge, they may be non-alcoholic, but nevertheless, they'll be close at hand.
For those that don't know you too well, we got your CV through, and thank you very much for that. And you can hear a little bit of an accent still there. I just will say that. So South African, over to Western Australia, Eastern Australia, and of course, where you are right now. But you've done some kilometres out there in the ocean. Bryan, can you summarise some of those bigger races for us?
Keelboat racing kicked off in 1990 in South Africa after having raced dinghies for 20 odd years. And when I moved to the east coast of South Africa, I thought I need to get into some big boat sailing. And, I did my training through the Ocean Sailing Academy at that time, and that afforded me opportunities to sail up and down the east coast of South Africa, which we know is a fairly notorious coast, anywhere from Mozambique down to Cape Town, and it does present its challenges. So I think in terms of local racing in South Africa, the Vasco da Gama was a predominant race there, and it's somewhat equivalent to the Sydney Hobart here, I would say, back in its heyday. And I managed to do 10 of those across the coast, along the coasts from Durban to East London, and then it later changed from Maputo in Mozambique to Durban. In addition to that, there was the Mauritius to Durban Yacht Race, which is about a 1,500 nautical mile race, and I participated in those as well on race boats. One of those races unfortunately lost a boat that had all my mates on it due to keel failure, so that's a pretty personal experience there. And then the Cape to Rio Yacht Race from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro
Now, you may just have played that Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro down a little bit, but how's 3,500 nautical miles sound across the Atlantic Ocean? So, yeah, let's give that its due.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic event. And, South Africa, for where it was in the apartheid days, struggled to attract the entry that race warranted. But when we moved out of that apartheid phase into the new era, it certainly did attract some interesting entries, and it was a great race. It's a difficult race. It's a challenging race in the sense that weather plays a very important factor in how you read the highs. And then, of course, the distance. You can do that in 17 days. You can do it in 30 days. It's entirely dependent on how you read that high pressure system.
One of the things about last year's race, it was very, very windy, a lot of retirement, very tough conditions. The east coast of South Africa is known for wind. It's known for the Agulhas Current, which is one of the hardest currents to sail a boat through in the world. And then you move to Western Australia, which is also known for wind. So are you hoping for a windy race or a light wind race, or what's the goal?
Look, I think the weather gods will predict and dish up what they want. I'm comfortable in all sorts of conditions with the experience I have and the respect I have of the sea. And I think, if it does blow like it did last year and we're doing a double-handed, that will certainly test us.
Brian, you have mentioned your crew, and considering it's the double-handed division, I don't think it's going to take a lot of time for you to go through that crew. Would you like to mention that person?
Yeah, a gentleman by the name of Michael Gibson, or Gibbo as we call him. Gibbo is, also a racing guy at heart. He's a little bit older than me. He's in his mid-60s. He loves my boat. He wishes he could have the boat, and I think he's really looking forward to sailing on it. He's got a Beneteau 47, and I think he's so excited to jump on board and see what Ocean Essence can do.
From a commentator's perspective, mate, my memory is that you have a great big yellow asymmetrical spinnaker on that boat, so it's easy to spot. Conditions normally, if you had to take the averages, you've probably got a southeaster for the start, a downwind start. Have you any considerations about what are the key decision points in the race?
The boat sails to its polars very well, and I'm quite familiar with how she performs under that 160 square meter spinnaker, and then under its, the next one down, which is about 140 squares, and then she's sitting with 59 squares of main and 56 squares of Genoa. So there's a fair bit of area on there. She's certainly not a race boat. She's certainly not a light boat, but she does get into the double figures fairly quickly, which will be good. And we'll be using, waterline length and the boat's ability to sail and perform to those polars to see if we can, leverage opportunity over the opposition.
Now, Brian, as you would be, I'm an avid listener of the Bar Karate Sailing podcast. And one of the contentious, do you like that, Jordan? I'm just slipping that in there occasionally. One of the contentious issues that I'm sure that you may or may not have heard of was the fact that the double handler division is not a part of the overall part of the racing, especially from Hobart. What's your point of view on that?
I don't have an opinion on that yet. I think, the fact that double-handed is starting to gain some ground, I'm hoping that over time the racing organisers will understand the value to racing that double-handed will bring, and they'll consider, changes in the future as to where double-handed ultimately sits.
The contention comes down to the fact that the autopilot is the element. And in all the other major races around the world, the double-handers race for the overall just as much as the fully crewed vessels. With the autopilot on your vessel, are you going to be hand steering majority of the way and just using the autopilot for sail manoeuvres, or are you planning on using the autopilot a bit?
No, look, I think we're going to be racing the boat hands-on. I think the autopilot will be called upon when we feel we need that additional assistance in any particular manoeuvre, but I think we've sort of taken a decision that it's a backup to steer the boat. We're going to look to hand steer as much as we can. I know, sailing at anywhere between, 110 and 150 degrees, the boat, I'm better on the helm than the autopilot is. And if we've got southeasters, then I'm certainly going to be wanting to steer the boat.
I thank you so much for your coming on today, Bryan, and having a chat about that. We are so looking forward to having you in the race this year. Once again, thank you for being part of our Before the Start, and we wish you all the best, and we'll see you line up on the start line on Good Friday.
Grant, thank you very much. Jordan, thank you very much. Do appreciate the opportunity to have a chat and share my views.